Hey, okay, so yeah, last time, yesterday, we covered Genesis chapters 7 and 8. And I think those are the worst of the entire Torah and of the whole thing that I'm aware of in terms of just mass atrocities. So forgive me if yesterday was just a bit of a downer. Um, Sorry, it's just the way it is. But should get better from here on out. I'm not going to be quite as pissed off about anything else that we have to get to. But any kind of war crimes tribunal of the UN, any kind of modern day world court would be very highly critical of any dictator in the world or any president in the world who did the things that we just saw God do in the last chapter. So if I wasn't pulling my punches about your religion and you're a religious person watching this, I imagine I lost you yesterday. So you're probably no longer around, but food for thought. If you're just picking this up here, it wasn't a pretty set of chapters in terms of war crimes, crimes against humanity, mass genocide, and just general atrocities. So today we're starting off with something a little bit lighter. Genesis 9. I think there's still some good things in Genesis, if I remember correctly. I think we've got Tower of Babel coming up. And I think we've got, I think we've got some other interesting stories. I feel like I'm phasing in and out of having this sort of suspension of disbelief where I treat everything in here as literal, and between kind of isolating it as a set of stories that a bunch of cavemen might have been telling, and kind of give it a historical context. In any case, Genesis specifically, in a historical context, isn't really to be taken seriously. It's a set of tribal storytelling practices that have been rolled into one book and tried to put into a historical context. So in terms of everything else that we're going to cover, Genesis is by far the one that has the longest heritage of being verbally transmitted, just based on how absurd it is. So last time we had giants, we've got talking snakes, we've got all of the things that an early mythology or like a pagan tradition would have rolled into one kind of God story. It's something that I saw yesterday in one of the things that I was working on and watching through. Somebody brought up that the Greek religions and the old Roman gods, at least we knew that they were petty and cruel, and the people didn't worship them and didn't celebrate them in quite the same way that we celebrate this one. You had Prometheus, which was the character who stood up to the gods and was an advocate for man, and he ended up being chained to a mountain to have his liver ripped out every day by an eagle, by something flying. Anyway, I'm often known for saying that the liver is a monster and it must be destroyed, but I don't think that's exactly what I meant. And honestly, if of the old Greek and Athenian gods, Prometheus isn't your favorite, then I don't think you really I don't think you really know much about the mythology of it. He was pretty much the only one of them that was really grounded. Get it? Grounded. Okay, so that's good for random introductory shit. And now we're on Genesis 9. I think I'm going to try to get through 3 today, but we'll see. It's always just a matter of whether or not something interesting shows up that strikes my interest. Oh, actually, bear with me for one more second here. I'm going to go back to Genesis 8. There's something else. I think I hit all of the things that I thought of yesterday after going through this. But yeah, war crimes, and definitely yesterday we just went over and over and over again how disgusting this thing was. And yeah, and then so Genesis 8 verse 21 I think is one of the most telling verses of the religions of Abraham. So here you have Judaism, Christianity, and the religion of Islam. And if you're one of my friends on Facebook, or if you follow my Facebook wall, you'll know that I'm extra critical of the newer ones. And basically, in chronological order, I feel like these religions have become more sane and more rational. And to some extent, that's a consequence of some really brutal periods in history. Judaism has gone through the most in terms of the people who practice the religion suffering at the hands of others and going through a lot of harsh times themselves. Christianity had the Reformation. Seems like the older a religion gets, the more sane the people that practice it get, and the less closely they follow it. But religious zealotry of any shape has the potential to do a lot of harm. So in the United States, for instance, in these United States, you're more likely to fall victim to a crime committed by a Christian zealot than a zealot of the Islamic persuasion. That being said, this is the Bible of all of them, so this is the original kind of core set of values that all of those share. And so when we get into the parts where women are second-class citizens, God didn't walk with any women so far. God doesn't really focus on women. So if you think of this religion as being a man-made religion, it really is a man-made religion. It's the male brain that's putting this thing together. It's just clearly the way it is. And the male brains of this tribe and of this time, I think I covered a couple days ago, are gonna move us down a sort of dangerous path for a while in these stories. Anyway, Genesis 8, verse 21. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagine of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. So this is after Noah built an altar and sacrificed some things to God. And so if you cook this God a steak, he'll forgive you, and your evil heart, and he's not going to kill every living thing. Now, I don't know about you, but from a very young age, I've instinctively liked the idea of people. I haven't necessarily been a people person for most of my life, but the concept is good, and I actually wish really great things for everybody. I'm not I don't have an evil heart. I have a human brain, and with that human brain comes a lot of human emotions, and with those human emotions come attractions and desires and And once, I really enjoy coffee. Sometimes I like tea. Sometimes I want to eat some food. Steak is pretty nice, but generally I avoid it because it's a sometimes food. I eat a lot of vegetables, but these are human values. This is the human heart. This isn't a heart tainted by a set of values that come from some book that was written down after a bunch of cavemen passed it down. So anyway, all right, okay. Finally, we're gonna get into today's stories. This is after Noah cooked God a steak. And here we go. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Well, you know, he wouldn't have to if he didn't just fucking murder everyone. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Are they delivered? Okay, shit's gonna fear man because he's the ultimate predator. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. So now you can eat meat as well as herbs, so don't necessarily be a vegetarian anymore. I guess, I don't know. And surely your blood of your lives will I require at the hand of every beast, will I require it. At the hand of man, and at the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. That's very, is it turning into a vampire now? Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. So, eye for an eye. It's a very Babylonian concept to be rolled into this thing. And you be ye fruitful and multiply, and bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark, to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there be any more flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you, for perpetual generations. And I do set my okay, some more from the Ricky Gervais thing that I hope you guys have watched. Yeah, I mean, I would hope, if there are other gods up there in Godland, if we're going to suspend disbelief for a second, that they would have maybe caught on to this thing that he was doing, this genocide of sentient creatures that he had created, and maybe, reprimanded him at least, if not sent him to his room for being pretty fucking childish. Hopefully they grounded him for a time. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. So apparently rainbows didn't exist, because the prism effect wasn't quite there yet. Maybe light was all one color, and there wasn't really an electromagnetic spectrum until this point in time. And God said, I'm going to create an electromagnetic spectrum, and I will have the human eyes be able to detect wavelengths between 400 and 800 nanometers. And now I have lost my phone. There it is. Sorry about that. Okay, Google. What are the wavelengths of the visible spectrum of light?
According to science-edu.larc.nasa.gov, our eyes are sensitive to light, which lies in a very small region of the electromagnetic spectrum labeled visible light. This visible light corresponds to a wavelength range of 400 to 700 nanometers and a color range of violet through red.
was close, 400 to 700 nanometers. Okay, Google, how do rainbows work?
According to Discovery Kids, rainbows happen when sunlight and rain combine in a very specific way. The beams of sunlight separate into the colors we see in the rainbow as they enter a raindrop. Sunlight is actually made up of different colors that we don't usually see. When a beam of sunlight comes down to Earth, the light is white.
So I'm going to have to keep going here because that's not quite the whole story. Oh man, this is great. So I'm just going to link to this down there, and supplemental reading if you want to know how rainbows work. But apparently, the prism effect, as light bounces around in a raindrop, wasn't there yet, and God just said, okay, I'm going to create a prism effect. So good on you, God, for codifying some more physics at that point in time. Cavemen, dude, cavemen. So I don't know where we were, but verse 15, I'll start from there again. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become flood and destroy all flesh, and the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, and that I remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of flesh that is upon the earth. Good, because, wouldn't want you to fucking forget that, would we? Oh, not killing all of mankind? Shit, did I say that? Oh yeah, rainbow. Oh, double rainbow? What does it mean? Oh, fuck. What did that mean? Maybe that meant that I could kill all life on Earth? No. Something like that. I'll have to go back and look. Maybe I could write that down somewhere. And God said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon earth. Jesus fucking Christ, get to the fucking point. And the sons of Noah that went forth from the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. Good. I don't know why we're starting with the middle son, but normally we go from the oldest first. These are the sons of Noah, and them the whole earth was over. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them the whole earth overspread. Like I said, you're going to lose a lot of genetic diversity when you do shit like that. And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. So he's not all bad. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon upon both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backwards, and they saw not their father's nakedness. For fuck's sake, it's a human body. You don't have to. Yeah, he's got a dick. I'm sorry. Let me just whip mine out so that y'all can see. No, I'm not gonna do that. It's not a big fucking deal. And for fucking cavemen, these people are really repressed. For fuck's sake. So this is where we get the very Victorian kind of cover everybody up, because oh my god, a penis. A penis. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall be unto his brethren. Shall he be unto his brethren. Okay. Wow. Something just occurred to me. So, in every generation of people that we've had so far, from Adam and Eve, where Eve was, women, right? From the very beginning, if you go back to chapter 1, immediately their first generation, Cain kills Abel and is cursed. And Cain then is the lesser group, and his family is the lesser group. They are to be shunned, essentially, and they're not the fruit farmers, but they're the oh, sorry. Yeah, because Cain originally grew fruit, and God said he wanted steak, which Abel gave him steak. Big fan of steak. You know, if God comes to visit, and he's staying with you for the weekend, I recommend the Texas Roadhouse, just a steakhouse. Actually, if there's a Fogo de Chao in your area, a Brazilian steakhouse, that seems like the type of place, because it seems like he likes a bunch of different types of meats, and those places, man, you will get your fill. I think if you can afford the $50 a plate meal, it's well worth it. Once again, sometimes food, it's like when you're really wanting to spoil yourself. But I mean, I would just, not eat for a couple days and then go and do that, because you want to go in hungry. Let me tell you, my only mistake, I've only ever gone once. I don't remember going once. Maybe I've been to another one in a different location, but the one in Houston was really good. And my mistake was that I had like McDonald's for lunch that day, and wasn't aware of the plans and was kind of invited later on. And so I wasn't nearly hungry enough when I got there, and sort of wasted a bit of stomach space, stomach real estate for that reason. That being said, I'm mostly a vegetarian. It's just, it's pretty good. So here again, just like we had with Cain being the underclass, the cursed, we have a cursed class here. And the reason he's cursed is because he went and grabbed his brothers and was like, hey, look, Dad's fucking drunk in his tent again. And so from then on, for that reason alone, he is to be a servant of servants. And Canaan, the entire city of Canaan, is going to be basically a slave city. It's just insanity, right? Is anyone listening to this shit or reading along with this shit and thinking, no, that's perfectly sensible. That's a perfectly sensible way for cavemen to behave. That if somebody gets drunk and passes out naked in their tent, and one of his kids sees him and just goes and gets his brothers to dude, Dad's fucking drunk again in his tent. I don't know, man. What are we gonna do about this? Oh, you saw him naked? You saw him naked? Oh, you're gonna be our slave from now on. From now on, and all your kids too are gonna be our kids' slaves. No, that's unreasonable. It's highly unreasonable. It's craziness. So I'm going to start back again at verse 24. We're almost done with Genesis 9. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him, and he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Okay. That was Genesis chapter 9. 24 minutes in, plenty of time. Wow, look at the ceremonial taming of the crazy hair here. I feel like what is it? Who's that celebrity that everybody always makes fun of for the hair? Somebody will get it. Somebody will let me know. Anyway, all right. Gary Busey. I've got Gary Busey hair. No, not quite as bad. I'll get there. I'll work on it. I'll keep working on it. One of these days I'll have Gary Busey here. Moving on. No, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't really have much else to say about Chapter 9. Chapter 9, Noah is a drunken wine farmer. His 3 kids, you know, kind of beat up on that middle kid. Or who is the Ham? Doesn't even say Ham in the end. So Ham was sorry, I'm trying to figure out which of the 3 Ham was. But I was like, I thought that was at the beginning of 9. I go back a few because it's definitely at the end of one of these 6 or 5. Bingo. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Yep, the middle kid really got the shaft. So the youngest kid's got to put together all the tents. The oldest kid just gets to hang out in those tents, and that middle kid is their bitch. Yeah, it's just the way it is. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. So you don't want to be in this sort of Ham category. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tiras, and the sons of Gomer, Ashnekaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. That's a good name. Togarmah. Why don't we name our kids this shit anymore? These are great. And the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, and Kittim, and Dodanim. Once again, just think Game of Thrones, family genealogies. Maybe I should just put together these as kind of Game of Thrones like family trees, so that you can skip this part, and I will I don't know. We'll figure out how to do that. Maybe I'll put I know what I'll do. I'm gonna put a thing on the video, an annotation of where this comes to an end. So this whole chapter is a genealogy. It's going to be crap from here on out. So actually, let me do one more thing. And the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. I want to know somebody named Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families and their nations. Isles of Gentiles. Alright, so Shem Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, so Japheth had were the Gentiles. Great. So they were building the tents, and Shem's kids were living in the tents, I guess. So now we're going to go on to Ham. So these are the guys you do not want to trace your genealogy to, because that would mean you are a lesser person, and you got to serve the other guys. And that's all I'm going to say. And then what I'm going to do is just burn through this, and then I'll put an annotation where I stop, so you guys can just skip ahead to that, unless you want to hear me, try to read through this shit as fast as I humanly can. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put. Sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Septa, and Ramah, and Sepcha. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod, Nice, Nimrod. Yes. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. Nimrod. Hey, if you call somebody a Nimrod, they're a mighty one. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Okay. In the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Okay, Nimrod and the Babylonians. Out of the land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah. The same is a great city. So here we've got some geographical information again. And Mizraim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Nephutim, and Pathrusim, and Casluhim, out of whom came the Philistines, and Kephtorim. And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, in Heth, and the Jebusite, and Amorite, and Girgashite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hemathite, and afterward were families of the Canaanites spread abroad. Good deal. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah, and Zeboim, even unto Lasha. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So, for those guys, that's like District 9 or whatever from that movie, The Hunger Games. They're just the working class. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. Unto Shem, also the father of all children in Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born. Well, good. I'm glad that Shem had some kids too. The children of Shem, Elam, and Asher, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. And the children of Aram, Uz, and Hul, and Gither, and Mash. Somebody should name their kid Mash for sure. And also Arphaxad. And Arphaxad begot Salah, and Salah begot Eber, and unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg. Peleg! I wonder if he played soccer. For in his days was the earth divided. Okay. And his brother's name was Joktan. And Joktan begat Almodad, and Shalef, and Hazarmapheth, and Jerah. So I don't understand how the earth was divided in Peleg's days when it wasn't divided in any of these other guys' days, because or any of his cousins' days. Maybe this is a metaphor for he kind of went nuts. But a lot of these guys sort of had that bit of crazy in their brains. Sorry, now we're at 26. And Joktan begot Almodad, and Shelef, and Hazarmeth, and Jerah, and Hadoram, and Uzal, and Dikla, and Obal, and Abimiel, and Sheba, and Ophir, and Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. Wow, Joktan really he liked having kids. It's like the old joke. It's like wife tells the husband, "We need another lawnmower." He's like, "What? You want to have another kid?" No, sorry, that's a terrible joke. So I'm not even gonna. I'm gonna put the thing where people go to if you're not into just like watching this boring shit after all this. And Joktan begot Almodad, and Shelef, and Hezmareth, and Jepheth. Oh, Joktan. We already went through Joktan. All these were the sons of Joktan. 30. And their dwelling was from Mesha, as thou goest unto Sephar, a mount of the east. This is like fucking Lord of the Rings here. These are the sons of I just want there to be like a map, you know, where the forest lands begin, and where all the slaves were, and then where the mortar was. These are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues. Like you know who I think would be in Mordor at the end of this. It would be all the orcs, and then at the very center of it, there'd be God, right? And the mission is to just survive this guy's just insanity. And their dwelling was from Misha, and thou goest unto Sephar, a mount of the east. These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, and their lands, after their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, and their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Okay. So this is where I'm going to mark. I'm just going to write this down. 35:43, so that I don't have to watch it over again, because that was some boring shit for verbal record. I would have gone a different direction if I were to put this together. New text document. And I'm boring you guys even more. 36. Right on the dot. So, welcome back. Everybody who skipped that bullshit, and I hope that's over at Genesis chapter 11. I feel like I need to say something interesting, but I have really nothing interesting to say. We already covered why they might be doing these genealogies in the spoken record, especially after a great reset where you've gone through where your tribe got separated from the rest of humanity, and you have to repopulate the planet from a very small gene pool. You would like to know logistically who your relatives were, so that you can not marry them. Then the other thing would be, obviously, one of these kids, that was the middle one, right? Ham. If you're related to Ham, you're kind of screwed. So if you're not related to Ham, you want to make sure that you're keeping track of this shit, so that you know who you can bully and whose kids you get to beat up on. Because God said so. But this is a very natural use of religion, right? To divide groups into two sets, so that one group can be the workhorse and be relied upon to do most of the work, while the other group become the sort of religious class. They get to just sort of dictate the laws, and they have a justification, a divine right to justify their subjugation of these other groups. So that's a pretty blatant use of religion right there, even in Genesis, which, as we discussed at the beginning of this set, is one of the weakest books. It's gone through the most in terms of transmission through spoken record and playing of the telephone game, which we all played in kindergarten, I hope, or first grade or whatever. Kindergarten, preschool, kindergarten, first grade, is that how it goes? I don't know. Anyway, I hope you guys played telephone, and if you haven't, go get a bunch of your friends together, and at your next party, just get in a circle, and everybody write down, a short, 7-word message. You put it in a hat, pick one out, read it, and then whoever wrote that one should just not be in the circle, because they know what it is. Don't read it aloud to everybody. So the host, I guess, maybe just puts together a 7-word message, gives it to the first person, who whispers it to the second person, who whispers it to the third person, and so on and so forth. And once you get through about 10 or 15 people, by the end, the 7-word message is going to come out completely garbled. You're not even going to have 7 words in it anymore. It's going to be probably loaded with shenanigans, if your friends are anything like me. Maybe you can get them to take it seriously the first time though, and then just mess around after that. But a spoken record of this sort of kind isn't to be trusted, and most likely it was incorporated into this group of books after being heard from, some of these stories from other tribes, and then sort of their stories incorporated because they were great stories, and they would help get people through this boring part of these genealogies, which nobody really wants to hear. Certainly nobody wants to be responsible for memorizing. But if it sets up a class system where your family doesn't have to do as much work as the other families, then you've got a real motivation to be the keeper of this sort of knowledge, and you even have a sort of incentive to subtly change it if you can, if you think you can get away with it between one generation and the next, so that your kids are even better off than they were before. So Genesis 11. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelled there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. I don't know where you got the slime. Maybe, seems a little bit like Minecraft all of a sudden. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach into heaven. Here we go. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. This is one of my favorite stories, actually, and another real telling about why you don't want your creator God to be the same God as the one that you worship. You don't want so these, I had this explained to me in this very particular way, and it was great. This is an origin story. This explains to us why we are the way we are, why different lands have different languages, and why people generally group up and have these sort of tribal opinions and tribal attitudes about things in general. And you have the us versus them sort of mentality. And it's the Tower of Babel story. So we're going to read it. I'll discuss more about it later. But think of it this way. This should not be the same God. This should be Zeus. And for the most part, in Genesis, this God is Zeus. And then later on, we get Jesus, which is a little bit more like Prometheus. You should not have Zeus and Prometheus be allies or the same one, the same character, because you run into these serious inconsistencies. Just like Noah's Ark, where he was this sort of petty, childish, genocidal maniac, the type of person that we would expect to see come out of North Korea. It's one of Hitch's, but generating a celestial North Korea. But I think in that chapter in particular, this is the sort of thing we could expect if all of the parents of a young child in North Korea died, and that young child sort of murdered everybody in the country the second that he got the nuclear launch codes. It's just, once you hit 10 or 11 years of age, I would think that you would have the logic and humanity and just reason to understand that this isn't a good idea, and that it's not really going to win you any friends. And then you certainly wouldn't want stories of this to be told afterwards. It's a fucking horrible way to be remembered. So in many religions, your creator God, your Zeus, your Odin, your kind of asshole father god is separate from the ones that you actually want to tribally connect with, because you don't want to tribally associate with that sort of the sort of asshole that would say condemn a third of all children on the planet to live in poverty and to go to bed hungry every night. You don't want to be allied with the type of God who would create tsunamis and hurricanes and earthquakes and tornadoes which kill innocent people. which kill children, which kill babies. You wouldn't want to be allied with the God who created a genetic structure whereby you have stillborns and mothers die at birth and all of these things. You want to explain them. If you don't have science, you could create a good story to comfort people, so that there's this concept of reason, even though you have no great reason at the time. So just your philosophers can come up with shit until you can get some more accurate data and some more information. But you don't want that to be the God that you worship, because that's just disturbing. That's horrible. You would have to be some kind of masochist to want to worship this kind of God. And we're going to get in. So let me read you the Tower of Babel story. It's not as bad as the last story that we just got through, but it's interesting. So chapter 11, Genesis 11, verse 4. You just read this, but I'm going to read it again. And they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." So mankind came together, and I presume women as well, and they decided to build a tower to mark this city. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord God said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence the Lord scattered them abroad upon the face of all the earth. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Ephraxad 2 years after the flood. Oh shit, now we got more of this shit. So the Tower of Babel story was much shorter than I thought it was going to be. And so here we're going to do another mark in a bit, so you can skip to it. But so shit, that was it. It's only 7 verses, the Tower of Babel story. That's I think maybe we get back to it later on. And you know how this book keeps repeating shit. But yeah, so people get together to build a big tower and a great city, and this petty, childish God comes down and says, "I don't want these people to be able to build great things. That's not the point of them. The point of them is to, I don't know, but they can't build great things. You don't want them to be able to do things once they put their mind to it. So we're going to confuse their languages so that they all speak different languages. It's nothing about, people living in disparate remote regions of the world coming up with new terms for new things, and slowly and gradually the language drifting away from some sort of original language, or people becoming more sophisticated as they age in individual societies and needing to describe things in philosophical ways, and abbreviating certain things and emphasizing other things, and language being a living thing, which if it isn't written down and you don't have the ability to put together a dictionary, will move very rapidly from one generation to the next, as children like to come up with their own terms and phrases and words for things. It's one of those things that children do. You never spoke Pig Latin, never had code words that you would use with your friends. You never used the new, what are these? I don't know any of the new words. Fleek, on fleek. It is on fleek to create new words. Self-referencing, I think. I don't know. I don't know how to use those words. I'm old. I'm not of the generation that's using them. I should not be allowed to use them, actually. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat. So skip ahead if you don't want to listen to the boring shit. I'm going to put a marker when I get done with this. these are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Ephraxad 2 years after the flood, and Shem lived after he begat Ephraxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters, and Ephraxad lived 530 years and begat Salah, and Ephraxad lived after he begat Salah 103 years and begat sons and daughters, and Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber, and Salah lived after he begat Eber 430 years and begat sons and daughters, and Eber lived 430 years and begat Peleg, and Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years and begat sons and daughters. Oh, this is the firstborn and the ages of the firstborn of somebody that we've already covered, actually, because we've hit Peleg before. And Peleg lived 30 years and begat Reu, and Peleg lived after he begat Reu 209 years and begat sons and daughters, and Reu lived 230 years and begat Serug, and Reu lived after he begat Serug 207 years and begat sons and daughters, and Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor, and Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years and begat sons and daughters, and Nahor lived 29 years and begat Terah, and Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. Holy shit, this is boring. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begat Lot, and Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abram and Nahor took them wives, and the name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and the father of Ishka. But Sarah was barren, she had no child, and Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, and Haran's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. And done. So Mark goes here. This is 51.56. Shit. So I only got through 2 chapters, and these are really boring chapters, so I feel kind of like this is going to take a long time. So I'm going to leave my glasses on for one more second here. So this is the thing that I was talking about with the ages, and I almost don't want to dive down into it because it's you know, this is probably better explained by the concept that every generation they emphasized this point more, that earlier generations lived a lot longer, and because it was in spoken record, it was easy to shift the story around and exaggerate certain things. Say, no, Noah lived 300 years. No, Noah lived 400 years. No, Noah lived 500 years. And so the farther back the genealogies were, the more years people lived. Or if their accounting was just not very good back then. But I do want to point out that there is just this tiny interesting thing about the bottlenecks, and I don't know why I'm stuck on it, but I'm gonna just go through really quick. So Shem lived to be 600 years old. So 100 years, and then he had Ephraxad, and then 500 years after Ephraxad. Ephraxad lived 35 years and begat Salah, and then 403 years. And Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber, and then lived 403 years. So he lived the same age as his dad. And Eber lived 34 years, and begat Peleg, and then he lived 430 years, so got stuck at 400 for a while. And Peleg lived 30 years and begat Reu, and then 209 years after Reu. And Reu lived 32 years and begat Serug. And Reu lived after he begat Serug 207 years and begat sons and daughters. So now we're down to 207 years. And Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor, and Sarah lived after he begat Nahor 200 years and begat sons and daughters. So now we're still at 200. Nahor lived 20 years and begat Terah, 29, young. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And then we're just at 119 for a long time in these things. Oh, and Terah Eisenhower lived 119 years and we got sons and daughters. Oh, Terra actually lives 205 years. All the days of Terra were 205 years at the very end there. So either through embellishments of earlier generations, of the great ancestors, or a lack of accounting, or maybe they were talking about months and then months got translated into years at some point. And 29 months is not a very good age to be when you have your first kid. I don't think that's possible, but it's on the surface ridiculous. But when I first read it, I was sort of, not when I first read it, but when I went back and looked at it more recently, I was kind of, whatever. There's this thing about genetics. But these people don't believe in genetics, so it's just sort of interesting to read this book that was the spoken tradition and is so far blown out of proportion, and you had just such crazy things in it. Have this little gem in it of this like anecdotal thing happening after this family got separated from the rest of their tribe, and there being this great bottleneck. And there was a great bottleneck that we know of in human history. There's no record of anybody living to be that age, though. So this is a crazy story, and I don't want to give it any credence whatsoever. But let me try to pull up. Oh, let me see if I can get Google to do this. Okay, Google. Great human bottleneck. Population bottleneck. 70,000 years ago. Okay, here we go. Okay, Google, read this page.
Here are your Gmail messages.
Nope. I'll have to figure out how to do this through OK Google. Read this. Nope. Alright. Forget that. Yeah, I apologize. And it looks like we're going to go long. But I'll just, so that we don't go too long, I'll just read aloud the first page that came up, which is this Wikipedia article on population bottleneck. So a population bottleneck or genetic bottleneck is a sharp reduction in the size of a population due to the environmental events such as earthquake, floods, fires, diseases, and whatnot. So you can imagine people surviving a flood on driftwood and getting to a new site, or restarting after a bunch of people died after a tsunami or something. Trying to find the last major human population bottleneck examples. The Toba catastrophe theory, presented in the late 1990s and 2000s, suggested that a bottleneck of the human population occurred 70,000 years ago, proposing that the human population was reduced to perhaps 10 to 30,000 individuals when the Toba supervolcano in Indonesia erupted and triggered a major environmental change. The theory was based on the geological evidence of sudden climate change and the coalescence evidence of some genes, including mitochondrial DNA, Y chromosome, and some nuclear genes. And the relatively low level of genetic variation in humans. More recent research shows the extent of climate change was much smaller than believed by proponents of the theory. However, coalescence times for the Y chromosomal and mitochondrial DNA have been revised to well above 100,000 years since 2011. In addition, such coalescence would not in itself indicate a population bottleneck. because mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome DNA are only a small part of the entire genome, and we are atypical in that they are inherited exclusively through the mothers and fathers, through the mother or the father, respectively. Yeah, okay, I'm going to explain this in a second. Genetic material inherited exclusively from either. Come on. Perfect. Boring from there on. So about 100,000 years ago, there was a coalescence in our genetic, basically barcodes. And the reason that I say genetic barcodes is because this is a trick or a thing that we've used. In plants, you've got, I believe, chloroplast DNA, which is problematic because the repair mechanisms in plants is actually pretty good. So I think in plants it's actually tougher to find a good barcode. But in all mammals and birds and basically all multicellular organisms, all eukaryotes, you have mitochondria. Mitochondria, as we covered earlier, comes from the mother. It comes from the egg almost exclusively. Y chromosomes, sorry if you're in the, the better half of the species, I don't know. If you're a girl, you don't have a Y chromosome. But for us to have a Y chromosome, we can also trace a paternal lineage of that Y chromosome, which is only ever passed from a father to his son. Well, except in rare situations where you have these super women who have trisomy 23, where they get actually 2 X chromosomes and a Y chromosome, and so they actually are phenotypically female, I believe, but have, a lot of the strength characteristics of men, and they are not allowed to participate in the Olympics because they have too big of an advantage. That Y chromosome gives them extra proteins and characteristics and what's it called when you're growing up, development, that are typically male characteristics. And as we covered before, this is through our evolution so that we could have the more expendable members of the community be those who were at a greater propensity for seeking adventure and going out and taking risks and trying to do things which might greatly benefit the tribe if they succeed, or lead to their own death if they don't. So these are male characteristics, but they also come with them a little bit of extra height, some extra strength. A lot of things are on this Y chromosome which are nice. They're convenient, honestly. And then the trade-off is, of course, that our life expectancy is lower. There's less kind of if we get hurt, we're less likely to seek help. We're less tribal a lot of times, more individualistic, and we're less likely to go to a hospital and these sorts of things. So just our mentality as people with Y chromosomes is generally to be a little bit more self-destructive, or a little bit less concerned with our own well-being. So, yeah, where was I going? Oh yeah, mitochondria from mothers, Y chromosome from fathers. I don't really agree with a lot of that last paragraph that I read you guys, because these are really good these are great barcodes. They work wonderfully well, and through every analysis and these are the things that give us the mathematical ability to determine how long ago it was that there was the last bottleneck in many different species, and in a lot of cases we're able to trace them back to migration events or geological events or other with a fairly predictable rate of change. So the concept is that over time, solar radiation, light, gets through the cell, pings against actually ultraviolet radiation for the most part, pings against the gene in the nucleus or in the mitochondria or wherever, and breaks the gene. So you've got repair mechanisms that come back and smooth that over, and they're pretty good. And part of the ways that you have, um, uh, two, shit, I've studied this for so many years, and I'm trying to go back and remember it all, where you have two base pairs, that are across from each other, that are complementary. If it splits in such a way that half of the chain is still intact, then these proteins can come back and smooth that over, and I'll have to look up the name of the protein and put it down there, and figure out based on what's still there what to put back, and so it gets fixed. There are some cases in replication, for instance, where you're splitting this thing and putting onto it the next bit on both sides, where if something goes wrong, you could end up with a little bit of a mix-up, and you could get the wrong thing placed in there, and they don't match up, they kind of bulge out, and then a protein will come over and see that and cut it and just make an executive choice to get rid of one of those bits and put another one back on. Now this is very rare. This happens just once every couple of generations to like one thing over this vast spectrum of genetic information. But since the mitochondria don't go through recombination at any point, they're just very specifically passed down from the mother to her children. And since the Y chromosome also never recombines, not really, doesn't really ever recombine, it also has a really good record. It doesn't have that noise, right? Where you would have in the other chromosomes, in the other 22 chromosomes, you'd have this noise of constant genetic information being exchanged. Also, the genome's just very big. Mitochondrial DNA is more reasonable and easier to work with. So you end up with a really good record of what happened and when we went through moments where our population almost went extinct. And through the mitochondrial record and the Y chromosome record, it's looking like our population almost went extinct 100,000 years ago. So any story of this sort of thing, there's no story that's going to last 100,000 years. It's just not possible. So as a human species, where the last convergence, the last great bottleneck was 100,000 years ago, there's just no way that this story is legitimate. But for a small tribe which gets washed out to an island and separated from the rest of their tribe, you could imagine that they would tell such a story. And this could be a much more recent event. And then through the telling of the story it could be a very good story. And then at some point they could develop boats, and they could get to the mainland, and they could reintegrate with the rest of society, and other societies could pick up on the story and enjoy it and put it in with their record of their heritage, and use it as a way to explain some things. So that is far more likely the case, but in any case, there's no geological event anywhere in this time frame, or bottleneck anywhere in this time frame. The human population was thriving when the experts placed Noah's Ark like 5,000 years ago or 6,000 years ago or something, or up to 8,000 years ago. So no, not even remotely plausible as an origin story for humans, but for a tribe that gets washed out to an island, I've got no problem with it, and that's actually pretty interesting. and I can see it getting reintegrated into a larger sort of creation story. So I'm going to definitely stop there. This is a long set of chapters, and we'll pick it up tomorrow. I hope there was enough. Hope there's enough interesting tidbits to this. I hope there's enough education going on. We learned about rainbows, which goes down there. Also, population bottlenecks, which I'll link to down there. And we did something else. I'll figure it out. I'll watch through it again and throw that down there as well. Anyway, yeah, so every time God sees a rainbow, he's like, oh yeah, don't destroy all of mankind. Shit, that's what that means. Don't kill them all. I'm glad I attached that to something that would allow me to trigger my memory when I saw it, because otherwise, I just, it seems like such a good idea to genocide us. My values don't come from this book. They don't.